Good morning. Well, this is part 2 of our walk through the centre of Southampton, following the Hares of Hampshire art trail. In part 1, we met several hares and saw some of the historic places of interest in the south of the city. In part 2, we'll continue through the centre of the city, and amongst other things, we'll see 2 more memorials to those who lost their lives when the Titanic sank in the Atlantic in 1912. I've downloaded the app which shows us where we can find the hares along the art trail. We ended part 1 with Mr. March, outside of the West Quay shopping centre. While standing next to Mr. March, I took a picture of the city walls. When I loaded this onto my laptop later, I saw that I'd been photobombed by a bee. We'll leave the photobombing bee and continue around the outside of the shopping centre, along above Bar Street. This is the main entrance to the shopping centre, and here we find the Wishing Hare, who seeks to remind us that with a leap of faith and an open imagination, we can find magic all around us. I've added more details of all the hares in the text below. Continuing along the street, we'll find our next hare. He's called McGregor. McGregor is covered in bright gold hairspray. Hairspray, get it? Moving swiftly along, we come to the Marlin shopping centre. Here we'll find Rusty and some leverets. A group of hares is called a drove, so this is a drove of leverets. Rusty is inspired by Southampton's naval history and much more, which you can read about in the text below. Leaving the shopping centres behind us, we arrive at the Civic Centre. This area was all completely rebuilt after it was flattened in the Second World War. Outside of the Civic Centre, we find Alloy Jack. Alloy Jack is coated in an organic brass paint and stands proud and strong in his environment. The central civic buildings are surrounded by wild flowers, providing a habitat for butterflies, bees and all sorts of insects in the centre of the city. With the civic building behind us, we walk across the open square to find our next hare. Actually, it's 2 hares, outside of one of Southampton's theatres. This impressive bronze sculpture is entitled Boxing Hares and has been sculpted by artist Hamish Mackie. This sculpture was launched at the Chelsea Flower Show and was exhibited at Royal Ascot before coming here to feature in the Hares of Hampshire art trail. We're around the north side of the civic buildings now to find our next hare, which, appropriately enough, is outside of the city's art gallery. This impressive hare is called Look Up and Within, who represents adaptability to change, both in nature and individually. We've crossed the road into the park that runs through the centre of the city now. We'll find our last hare near the cenotaph. This hare is called I Wish My Love Was a Cherry. The design is inspired by an old folk song of the same name. We see the lost and beloved child riding away on the back of this fine hare through the fields and the forests and the days and the nights, her spirit running free forever. This is a fitting hare to stand next to the cenotaph, which commemorates those who've given their lives in various wars and conflicts, and whose spirits are running free forever. We'll leave the cenotaph and cross the road. Along here we'll find another of the Titanic Memorials in the city. As I said in part 1 of this walk, Most of the Titanic's crew came from Southampton, so it was a massive shock when the ship sank. 685 crew members died, and among them were many of the ship's engineers. This poignant memorial is dedicated to those engineers who never returned to their families. There's another Titanic Memorial nearby. This memorial remembers a band which famously played on as the ship sank to keep up morale, if that was possible. This is the Titanic Musicians Memorial. Sadly, none of the musicians survived. And that brings us to the end of our walk through historic Southampton, following the Hares of Hampshire art trail. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks very much for watching.